Hello everyone, welcome to another lecture on C++ programming language. We are on lecture 20 on C++ programming. So in this lecture, we talk about conditional statements in C++. As the name suggests, conditional statements are those statements which are used in our program to check conditions. If we need to check a condition in our program, we need to use one of those conditional statements in our program. So, for example, if you write a program to check the username and password of a user, so if you log in your Facebook or on your system, so you need to enter the username and the password. So we take the username and the password from the user and we check a condition if this username and password, which is entered by the user, are equal to those username and passwords which are stored on our database. So we just compare them. So we use condition. So in C++, we have 4 kind of conditional statements. So we are on lecture 20 and we talk about conditional statements. So in C++, we have 4 kind of conditional statements. So first, we have if statement, then we have if else statement, if else, then we have if, else if, else statement, and then we have switch statement. So these are the statements in C++ we use in our programs to check conditions. So we have if statement, we have if else statements. If statements, is used to only check a condition. If the condition is true, so it will execute the body inside the if statements. Then we have if else statements. If the condition is true, the body of if will be executed. If it's false, the else part will be executed. So then if we have multiple condition, we can use if else statements, or we can use the switch statements to check more options or more conditions. So in this lecture, we want to talk about the if statements. So I remove this tree and I put only the if statement. So we have the if statement. How we can use these if statements? What is the syntax? So we write the if, then we write the condition inside parentheses. Condition. Then we open the curly braces for the if statements, and then we close the curly brace. Any statements we have here, we actually write our statements here, maybe one statement or maybe multiple statements. So first in our program, we have if, and then inside parentheses, we have condition. So we put our condition here. If the condition is true, if the result of this condition is true, so the body of if statement will be executed. Any statements we have here, if the condition is true, any statements we put inside the body of if statements, it will be executed. Otherwise, the remaining part of the program will be executed after if any statement we have here. So those statements will be executed if the condition is false. So if the condition is true, inside the body of if statements, those statements which are located inside the body of if statements will be executed. If the condition is false, so inside the body of the if statements will not be executed, but after that, after the if statements, the remaining part of the program will be executed. So for example, if we see an example here, Like, for example, if we have like integer age, for example, I can say age is equal to 20. So here I check the condition if the user is eligible to vote or not. So in this case, I write if, then I write our condition. So I say if age is larger than or equal to 18. So now cout quotation, you are eligible to vote. Quotation semicolon. So now in our program, we have a variable called age and we store 20 inside the age. And now in our program, we should check if a user is eligible to vote or not. This is the condition. So condition is if the user age is equal to 18 or larger 18, he can vote or she can vote. So in this case, we check inside the condition, we use the if statements, and we check if the age is entered by the user. So now we have 20, but you can get this age from the user. If his age is if age is larger than or equal to 18, so in this case, if we check 20 is larger than 18, so the body of if statement will be executed because our condition is true. Our condition is in this case true, and it says cout, you are eligible to vote. So the output of the program will be you are eligible to vote. But if the condition is false, so say for example, if the age is 10, if the age is 10, so 10 is not larger than 18 or equal to 18, so the condition becomes false. So the body of if statements will not be executed. One thing more which I can add here, this parentheses are optional. If you have one statement, so you don't need to put that statement inside the curly braces. So you can delete this curly braces if you want to, like for example, if your condition is, if your condition is true, so you want to, you want to execute only one statement. So see how do you say you are eligible to vote. You are eligible to vote. So in this case, if the condition is true, so for example, I put here 20. Now inside the age variable, we have 20. So the condition becomes true and this statement will be executed. But if the condition is true and you want to execute multiple statements, so you need to use, curly braces. So for example, I see here, open the curly braces. This is the body of if. It starts from here and ends here. So I can write here cout, you are eligible to vote. And also I can write here end line. But I want to, execute another statement as well. I can say cout, thank you for voting. Thank you for voting. So we have two statements here. We don't have one statement. So if we have one statement to be executed if the condition is true, so we don't need to put, the curly braces. If we have multiple statements, like for example, in this case, we have two statements. If the condition is true, these statements will be executed. So in that case, we need to put our statements inside the curly braces. So this is an example of using if statements. And another example of if statements, for example, we already, in one of our lectures, we calculated the area and perimeter of, a square. The square is like this, So if we have a side here, all sides of the square is equal. So this is, for example, if this is 4 centimeter, So this side is also 4 centimeter, this side is also 4 centimeter, and this side is also 4 centimeter. So in this case, we take this side from the user, and we should check here the condition. If side is, larger than 0, so we should check if side is larger or bigger than 0, then we need to calculate, the area and the perimeter of, square. Area equal to, like, side square, side multiply side, and perimeter is equal to, 4 multiply side. We need to check the condition if side is, larger than 0. Why? If side is a negative value, it means, so if side is like become 1 centimeter, so our square shape becomes so small. If side become 1 centimeter. So 1 centimeter this side, 1 centimeter this side, 1 centimeter this side. If side is become 0, it means that our square is a dot. We don't have here, like, we don't need to, calculate the area and the perimeter of this, square. Or if the side is minus, if the side is become minus 20. So this kind of, we don't have actually minus 20, square. So we need to check here if the user enter if a value then larger than 0 or bigger than 0, then we can, actually, calculate the area and perimeter of the square. Otherwise, if the value is 0 or the value of negative, so such kind of square does not exist. So if something is not exist, in our world, so we cannot actually calculate the area and perimeter of that, square. So we need to check condition in our program, or we check the username and the password, So this was about, this lecture was about conditional statements, especially the if statements. So now it's time for practice, and let's go and work and write some examples with the if statements in our computer. Thank you. So I'm on my computer, so let's open our IDE. So we are on lecture 20. On lecture 20, we talk about conditional statements on C++. Conditional statements in C++ are used to check conditions on our program. So if we need to, check a condition in our program, we need to use one of the conditional statements which are available on C++ programming language. And we have if statements, we have, if else statements, we have if else statement, and we have switch statement in C++. So there are conditional statements in C++ which are used to check conditions in our programs. So let's start from if statements. So from if statement. So if statement is used in our program to check conditions. So for example, if we write a program which checks if, the number is, positive. So for example, I declare a variable here, integer number, and then cout, I say enter a number, and then cn, I enter, if the user enter a number, so I check here the condition, like if number is larger than 0 or bigger than 0, so I can say here cout, I can say number is positive. So this program only check, if the number is positive or not. Number is positive. So I inline. end line. Okay. So now let's run our program. I enter number 23 and it says 23 is positive. So here, if you can see here, we use the if statement and we have a condition here. Like we check if this number is, larger than 0. So if your user enter here 23, so this 23 is bigger or larger than 0. So the condition become true. If the condition become true, so the body of if statement will be executed. Any statements which we have here inside the body of if statements will be executed, and it says number is positive, that 23 is positive. But if we write, let's run the program. If I enter a number like, minus 10. Now, if you can see, the output of program is nothing. Why? Because here the condition become false. Minus 10 is not larger than 0, so the body of if statements will not be executed. So let's write another program. So here, I write the program to calculate, the area and parameter of square. We already, uh, wrote this program in one of our lecture, but in this lecture, we need to check the condition. So let's, I write here, I declare my variables, double area, parameter, and also I need to declare the site variable. So here I can say cout, can see here quotation, and right here is square program. Now, here I say inline, or we can use backslash, like let's use it to inline. So we have two line space. So now here I cout and I say enter the side of the square. When the user enter the side, I have to check before I calculate the area. If a user enters positive number bigger than 0, so I calculate the area, and the perimeter of the square. If the user enters a number which is, 0 or minus number or negative number, it means practically that square does not exist. If your program calculate, the square of the side of a square which is minus, that's, a bug in your program, So you have to check this, this condition. So I check if side is larger than 0. So now I can, say area equal to area become side multiply side, and perimeter became 4 side. Instead of 2 side, we have 4 side. That's the formula. 4 side. And now we can, cout area of a square is area, and also cout perimeter of the square is perimeter. So now let's run our program. So let's run our program. It says square. Let's stop it. So let me run it again. So it says enter the side of the square. I enter, for example, 34. And it calculates for me the area and the perimeter of the square. But if I enter a negative number, so let's enter here, like I enter minus 100. You can see now our programs check a condition, which is if that number which is entered by the user is larger or bigger than 0, it will calculate the area and the perimeter of the square. Otherwise, it will not calculate that one. If you enter a negative number or minus number, it means if the side become minus or 0, so it means practically that square is not exist. So you cannot, calculate the area and perimeter of that square. So we are here, check the conditions. Or another program, I can check here the username and the password, For example, I write also here, I write here string. Username is equal to admin, and string password is equal to admin 123, for example. Now I declare two variables here, like string uname and comma pwd. I get this, username and password from the user. If the username and password is correct, then I calculate the area and square of, the area and perimeter of the square. So what I can do here, so this is, a square program. Then I can see here, cout, enter your username, and then I can say cn, I store that username inside, the uname, and also cout, enter the password, and I store inside the pwd. And now I check here if uname, which we got it from the user, is equal to the username which we have in the system, and the password is equal to the password which we have in the system. So if this username and password is correct, so what we can do here, so we open the curly braces here for the if, and we close. But we put this code completely. I can, right click, cat it, and I say here, if the username and password is correct, then calculate, the area and the perimeter. So we have here if inside if. You can see. So we check here if the username is the username which we have in the system. So if the username which is entered by the user is equal to the username which we have in the system, and the password which entered by the user is equal to the password which we have in the system, if the condition is true, so then inside the curly braces, inside the if statement body will be executed, which all of them, these are the statements which will be executed. So now we ask the user enter the side of the square, and the user enter the side. If side is larger than 0, the area will be, the area and perimeter of, the square will be, calculated. So let's run the program. Now here, username, let's enter the admin. Let's enter the username admin, which is correct, and enter the password. I can see here admin 123, if you can see here. And now, if you can see, enter the side of the square. So I can enter 12, and it calculates the area and perimeter of the square. You can see here. So it asks for the username, and we can see if we enter the correct username and password. So if the username and password is correct, so we can see here if the username and password is correct, so our program will calculate the area and perimeter of the square. And then we have another if statements here, which checks if the side is larger than 0, then it will, calculate the area and perimeter. So we have if inside if. We can have multiple if inside, if. So let's run the program again. So let's see, enter the username and the password. For example, I enter the username admin, but the password I enter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, something like this. And if you can see, it will not calculate the username and it will not calculate the square area of a square or perimeter because our condition became false because we entered the incorrect password. So this was today's lecture, which was lecture 20, and it was about if statements. I hope you enjoy from this lecture and see you on the next lecture.